The garage door rattled open, and I froze, heart pounding like a drum in my chest. I wasn't supposed to be here. Not like this. Not with my best friend's dad glaring at me like he'd caught me stealing. But it wasn't theft that brought me to this dusty garage in suburban Ohio. It was a secret I hadn't meant to uncover. My name's Ethan Carter, 22, a lanky guy with a mop of brown hair and a habit of overthinking everything. I've known Lucas Bennett since we were kids, tearing through the neighborhood on bikes, sharing secrets under the stars. We were inseparable, two sides of the same coin, until last summer when something shifted. His green eyes lingered on me a little too long. His laugh felt warmer, and every accidental touch sent my pulse racing. I didn't have a name for it then, just a knot in my stomach that tightened every time he was near. That August evening, the air was thick with the scent of motor oil and cut grass. Lucas had called me over to his family's garage, a cramped space stuffed with tools, car parts, and his dad's old Mustang he'd been restoring forever. "Need your help with something," Lucas had said, his voice casual, but his eyes dodging mine. I didn't ask questions. I never did with him. I just showed up like always in my faded jeans and a t-shirt, ready to get my hands dirty. But when I stepped inside, Lucas wasn't alone. His dad, Mr. Bennett, Tom, as he insisted I call him, was there, arms crossed, his weathered face set in a scowl. Tom was a big man, a mechanic with hands like bear paws, and he'd always been kind to me, the kid next door. But tonight his eyes were cold, calculating, like he was sizing me up for something I didn't understand. "Ethan," he said, his voice low, "you're going to help us with a project. But you keep your mouth shut, you hear?" I nodded, confused, my gaze flicking to Lucas. He was leaning against the workbench, his blonde hair catching the fading sunlight, but his usual easy grin was gone. Instead, he looked nervous? Guilty? I couldn't tell. "What's going on?" I asked, my voice cracking just enough to betray my unease. Lucas opened his mouth, but Tom cut him off. "You'll see. Just do what I say." He gestured to a tarp in the corner, covering something bulky. My stomach twisted. This wasn't about fixing a car. This was something else, something bigger. As Tom pulled back the tarp, my breath caught. Underneath was a stack of crates, unmarked, heavy-looking, and definitely not car parts. Lucas wouldn't meet my eyes now, and I felt the ground shift beneath me. What had I walked into? "Dad, maybe we shouldn't," Lucas started, but Tom's glare silenced him. "You want to help your family, don't you?" Tom snapped. "This is how we do it." He turned to me, his expression softening just enough to unsettle me more. "Ethan, you're a good kid. Loyal. That's why you're here. But you breathe a word of this to anyone, and you'll regret it." I swallowed hard, my mind racing. Lucas and I had shared everything. Every fear, every dream. But this was a secret he'd kept from me, and it was tearing at the fragile thing growing between us. I wanted to grab him, demand answers, but Tom was watching, and the weight of his warning pinned me in place. The crates, Tom explained, were part of a side hustle. He didn't say what was inside, only that they needed to be moved, quietly, tonight, to a warehouse across town. "You drive," he told me, tossing me the keys to his truck. "Lucas rides with you. No stops, no questions." I glanced at Lucas, hoping for a clue, a signal, anything. His jaw was tight, his hands shoved deep in his pockets. "Let's just get it over with," he muttered, and my heart sank. This wasn't the Lucas I knew, the one who'd sneak me beers and laugh until we couldn't breathe. This was someone caught in something dark, and now I was caught too. The drive was silent, the truck's engine rumbling through the tension between us. Streetlights flickered over Lucas's face, casting shadows that made him look older, haunted. I gripped the wheel, my knuckles white, and finally broke the silence. "Why didn't you tell me?" He flinched, staring out the window. I couldn't. Daddy's got plans. Big ones. And I'm stuck in the middle. "Plans?" I pressed, my voice barely above a whisper. "What kind of plans, Lucas?" He turned to me then, his eyes raw with something I couldn't name. Fear, shame, maybe both. "I didn't want you involved, Ethan. But Dad thinks you're like us. Loyal. He trusts you. My chest tightened. Loyal. That word again. But it wasn't just loyalty to the Bennetts that kept me here. It was Lucas, the way his voice softened when he said my name, the way his hand brushed mine when we worked side by side. I never admitted it, not even to myself, but I was falling for him. And now, in this truck with crates of God knows what in the back, I was terrified I'd lose him to whatever this was. We reached the warehouse, a hulking shadow in an abandoned lot. Tom was already there, waiting with two other men I didn't recognize. Their faces were hard, their movements quick and practiced. My stomach churned as we unloaded the crates, the weight of them straining my arms. Lucas worked beside me, silent, his shoulder brushing mine. Each touch felt like a lifeline, but also a reminder of the distance growing between us. When the last crate was stacked, Tom clapped me on the back, his grip too tight. Good work, kid. You're in now. In what? I wanted to scream, but Lucas's eyes begged me to stay quiet. As we drove back, the silence was heavier than before. I didn't know what I'd just done, but I knew it changed everything. Lucas reached for my hand, his fingers trembling, and for a moment, I thought he'd say something to make it all okay. But he didn't. He just held on, like he was afraid I'd slip away. Back at the garage, Tom was gone, leaving us alone in the dim light. Lucas finally spoke, his voice barely audible. I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't want this for you. Then why am I here? I asked, stepping closer, my heart hammering. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine, and for the first time, I saw it, the truth he'd been hiding. Because I couldn't do this without you, he whispered, and because I'm scared I'm losing you. My breath hitched. The garage felt smaller, the air charged with something unspoken. I reached out, my hand grazing his cheek, and he didn't pull away. For a moment, it was just us, the world outside fading. But the weight of the crates, Tom's warning, and the secret we now shared loomed over us, threatening to pull us apart before we could even begin. The next morning, I woke with a jolt, the memory of Lucas's touch burning in my mind. I lay in my childhood bedroom, staring at the cracked ceiling of my parents' house, trying to piece together what had happened. The crates, Tom's cryptic warnings, Lucas's trembling hand in mine. It all felt like a fever dream, but the ache in my chest was real. I met Lucas at the diner down the street, a greasy spoon where we'd spent countless mornings nursing coffee and trading stories. Today, though, the air between us was different, charged with secrets and something deeper. He slid into the booth across from me, his blonde hair messy, his eyes shadowed from lack of sleep. You okay? He asked, his voice low, like he was afraid of the answer. No, I admitted, stirring my coffee just to have something to do with my hands. What the hell was last night, Lucas? What's your dad into? He leaned back, glancing around the diner like someone might be listening. It's complicated, he said finally. Dad's been struggling since the shop started losing business. He got mixed up with some guys, bad guys. They pay him to move stuff. That's all I know. All you know. I hissed, leaning forward. You dragged me into this, Lucas. I deserve more than that. His face crumpled, and for a second I thought he might cry. I didn't want to, he said. Dad said it was one job, just to get us out of debt. But it's never just one job with these people. I wanted to be angry, to storm out, and never look back, but the way he looked at me, vulnerable, desperate, kept me glued to the seat. Why me? I asked. Why do you let him pull me in? Lucas's gaze dropped to the table, his fingers tracing the edge of his mug. Because I trust you, he said softly, and because I needed you there, with me. My heart stuttered. There was again, that pull between us, the one I'd been ignoring for months. I wanted to reach across the table, to tell him I felt it too, but the weight of last night's secret held me back. What are we doing, Lucas? I asked instead, my voice barely steady. He looked up, his green eyes locking onto mine. I don't know, he admitted, but I can't stop thinking about you. The confession hung between us, raw and reckless. I felt the diner fade away, the clatter of dishes and hum of conversation dissolving until it was just us. My hand moved before I could stop it, brushing against his on the table. His fingers curled around mine, And for a moment, everything else, the crates, Tom, the danger, didn't matter. But reality crashed back when my phone buzzed. A text from Tom. Meet me at the garage. Noon. Don't be late. My stomach dropped. Lucas saw the message and paled. He's not done with us, he whispered. At the garage, Tom was waiting, his expression unreadable. You did good last night, he said, tossing me a rag to wipe my hands, though they were clean. Got another job tonight. Same deal, but bigger. You in? I glanced at Lucas, who was staring at the floor, his jaw tight. Do I have a choice? I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. Tom's eyes narrowed. You always got a choice, Ethan. But you're smart. You know what happens if you walk away. The threat was clear, though he didn't spell it out. I nodded, my throat tight, and Tom clapped me on the shoulder like we were buddies. Good. Lucas will fill you in. When Tom left, Lucas grabbed my arm, pulling me into the corner of the garage. We can't keep doing this, he said, his voice urgent. It's dangerous, Ethan. These guys are not messing around. Then let's get out, I said, my voice low but fierce. You and me. We tell someone, cops, anyone. He shook his head, his eyes wide. You don't get it. Dad's in too deep. If we talk, they'll come for him. For us. I stepped closer, close enough to feel the heat of him, the panic radiating off him. Then what do we do? I asked, my hand grazing his arm. He didn't pull away. Instead, he leaned in, his forehead resting against mine. I don't know, he whispered, but I can't lose you. The air between us crackled, and before I could think, my lips found his. The kiss was desperate, hungry, like we were trying to hold on to something before it slipped away. His hands gripped my shirt, pulling me closer, and for those few seconds, the world was just us, two scared kids in a garage, clinging to each other in the middle of a storm. But the storm wasn't over. That night, we drove another load, this time to a different warehouse, one that felt even shadier than the last. The men there were rougher, their eyes colder, and one of them, a guy with a scar across his cheek, kept watching me like he knew something I didn't. When we finished, he pulled Tom aside, their voices low but heated. I caught only fragments. New kid, trust him, don't screw this up. On the drive back, Lucas was shaking. They're watching us, he said, his voice barely audible. They know who you are now. My blood ran cold. What does that mean? It means we're in deeper than I thought, he said, his hand finding mine in the dark. And I'm so sorry, Ethan. I squeezed his hand, my heart racing. I didn't know what we were up against, but I knew one thing. I wasn't letting go of him. Not now, not ever. Days bled into weeks, and the garage became our prison. Every job pulled us deeper into Tom's world, a maze of shady deals and whispered threats. Lucas and I were tethered by fear and something stronger, something neither of us dared name aloud. But every stolen kiss in the shadows of the garage, every whispered promise, felt like defiance against the chaos closing in. Tom's business was no side hustle. The crates held contraband, stolen goods, maybe drugs I didn't know, and Tom made sure I didn't ask. He'd taken to calling me son, a word that felt like a chain around my neck. Lucas hated it, I could tell, but he was trapped too, caught between his dad's expectations and the life he wanted. A life, I hoped, that included me. One night, after another tense delivery, Lucas pulled me behind the Mustang, his hands shaking as he gripped my shoulders. We have to stop this, he said, his voice raw. I can't keep dragging you into Dad's mess. Then let's leave, I said, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at me. We'll go somewhere, anywhere, just us. His eyes softened, but the sadness in them broke my heart. It's not that simple, he said. Dad's not just in debt. He's scared. Those guys, they've got something on him. If we run, they'll find us. I cupped his face, forcing him to look at me. We'll figure it out, I said. Together. He kissed me then, softer this time, like he was memorizing me. I don't deserve you, he murmured against my lips. Shut up, I said, smiling despite the ache in my chest. You're stuck with me. But the next job changed everything. Tom called us to the garage at dawn, his face grim. Big one tonight, he said, his voice clipped. You two are driving across state lines. Don't mess it up. State lines. I echoed, my stomach dropping. Tom, that's non-negotiable. He cut in, his eyes hard. You're in or you're out, Ethan. Choose. Lucas stepped forward, his voice sharp. Dad, he's done enough. Let him go. Tom's face darkened. You don't get to decide that, Lucas. He's part of this now. I felt the walls closing in, the air thick with tension. Lucas's hand brushed mine, a silent plea, and I nodded. I'm in, I said, hating every word. The drive that night was a nightmare. The truck was heavier, the crates bigger, and the road stretched into darkness that felt endless. Lucas was quiet, his hands fidgeting in his lap. I hate this, he said finally. I hate what it's doing to us. It's not us, I said, reaching for his hand. It's them. Your dad, those guys. We're still us. He looked at me, his eyes glistening. Are we? Before I could answer, headlights flashed behind us. My heart leapt into my throat as a black SUV pulled alongside, its windows tinted. Lucas, I whispered, my voice tight. What's that? He glanced back, his face pale. Keep driving, he said. Don't stop. But the SUV didn't pass. It stayed close, too close, like a predator stalking prey. My hand shook on the wheel, and Lucas's breathing was ragged. They're following us, he said. They don't trust us. The road was empty, the night pressing in. I pushed the gas, my mind racing for a way out. What do we do? I asked, my voice barely steady. I don't know, Lucas admitted, his hand gripping mine. But whatever happens, I'm with you. The SUV suddenly swerved, cutting us off. I slammed on the brakes, the truck skidding to a stop. Two men got out, their faces shadowed, but their intent clear. One of them, the guy with the scar, rapped on my window. Open the back, he barked. Lucas and I exchanged a glance, our hands still clasped. My heart pounded, but his touch kept me grounded. We climbed out, the night air cold against my skin, and opened the truck's back. The men inspected the crates, muttering to each other. Scarface turned to me, his eyes narrowing. You're the new kid, he said. Tom says you're solid. You better be. I nodded, my throat dry, and they left as quickly as they'd come. Lucas and I stood there, frozen, until the SUV's taillights disappeared. We can't keep doing this, I said, my voice shaking. I know, Lucas said, pulling me into his arms. We'll find a way out. I promise. But as we drove back, the weight of his promise felt fragile. Tom was waiting at the garage, his expression unreadable. Good job, he said, but there was no warmth in it. You're proving yourself, Ethan. I didn't want to prove myself to him. I wanted to save Lucas, to save us. But every step deeper into this world made that feel impossible. The breaking point came on a rainy October night. The garage smelled of damp wood and gasoline, and Lucas and I were alone, waiting for Tom's next orders. We hadn't spoken about the kiss in days, but it lingered between us, a spark in the dark. I wanted to hold him, to tell him we'd find a way out, but fear kept me silent. Tom burst in, his face flushed with urgency. We've got a problem, he said, tossing a duffel bag onto the workbench. They're onto us. Someone talked. My blood ran cold. Who? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Tom's eyes flicked to Lucas, then back to me. Doesn't matter. We need to move everything now, before they come looking. Lucas stepped forward, his voice trembling but firm. Dad, this has to stop. We're not criminals. Ethan's not. Enough, Tom roared, slamming his fist on the workbench. Tools clattered to the floor, and I flinched. You think you can just walk away? You think they'll let you? Lucas's face hardened. I'm done, he said. I'm not doing this anymore. Tom grabbed his arm, his voice low and dangerous. You walk away, you're dead to me. Both of you. The words hit like a punch. I stepped between them, my heart racing. Leave him alone, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. He's your son. Tom's eyes burned into mine, but before he could respond, headlights flashed outside. My stomach dropped. They're here, Tom muttered, grabbing the duffel bag. Hide. Lucas pulled me behind a stack of tires, his hand tied around mine. We crouched in the dark, our breath shallow, as footsteps echoed outside. Voices low, menacing, filled the air. "Check the garage," one said. My heart pounded so loud I was sure they'd hear it. Lucas's hand squeezed mine, his eyes wide with fear, but also something else, resolve. "If we get out of this," he whispered, "I'm telling you everything. No more secrets." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. The footsteps grew closer, and I braced myself, ready to run, to fight, anything to keep Lucas safe. But then the voices faded, the headlights dimmed, and the garage fell silent. We stayed there, frozen, until Tom hissed, "They're gone. For now." Lucas stood, pulling me up with him. "This ends tonight," he said, his voice fierce. "I'm done hiding." Tom's face twisted with rage, but before he could speak, Lucas turned to me. "Ethan, I love you," he said, loud enough for his dad to hear. "I've loved you for years, and I'm not letting him take that away." My heart stopped. The world tilted, and all I could see was Lucas, his green eyes blazing with courage. I grabbed his hand, my voice shaking. "I love you too." Tom's face went white, then red. "You what?" he stammered, his voice a mix of shock and disgust. "You heard me," Lucas said, stepping closer to me. "I'm gay, Dad, and I'm done pretending for you." The silence that followed was deafening. Tom's hands clenched, and for a moment, I thought he'd hit one of us. But he just stood there, staring, like the world he'd built was crumbling. "We're leaving," Lucas said, his voice steady. "And you're not stopping us." Tom didn't move as we grabbed our jackets and walked out into the rain. The night air was cold, but Lucas's hand in mine was warm, grounding. We didn't know where we were going, only that we were together. But the danger wasn't over. As we reached my car, a shadow moved in the alley. Scarface stepped out, his eyes glinting in the streetlight. "Going somewhere?" he asked, his voice cold. Lucas pushed me behind him, his stance protective. "Leave us alone," he said. Scarface smirked, pulling a phone from his pocket. "Tom's not the only one with plans," he said. "You two are in deep, and there's no walking away." My heart sank. We'd escaped the garage, but the world Tom had pulled us into wasn't letting go. Rain soaked through my jacket as Lucas and I faced Scarface in the alley. His smirk was a blade, cutting through the fragile hope we'd clung to. "You think you can just leave?" he said, stepping closer. "Tom's not the boss here. I am." Lucas's grip on my hand tightened, but his voice was steady. "We're done," he said. "Whatever you're into, we're out." Scarface laughed, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "You don't get it, kid. You're in too deep. Both of you." He nodded toward me, his eyes narrowing. "Especially you new kid. Tom says you're loyal. Let's see how loyal you are when the cops come knocking." My stomach twisted. Cops? Was this a setup? I glanced at Lucas, his face pale but defiant. "We're not afraid of you," he said, though his voice shook slightly. "You should be," Scarface said, pulling a gun from his jacket. The world slowed, the rain blurring everything except the glint of metal. My heart pounded, but Lucas stepped in front of me, his body a shield. "Put it down," Lucas said, his voice low but fierce. "You don't need us." Scarface's eyes flicked between us, calculating. Then, to my shock, he lowered the gun. "You're right," he said. "I don't need you. But Tom does, and he's not going to like this." He turned and disappeared into the rain, leaving us shaking but alive. Lucas pulled me into his arms, his breath ragged against my neck. "We need to go," he whispered. "Now." We ran to my car, the rain pounding around us, and drove until the town lights faded. We didn't stop until we reached a cheap motel 2 hours away, the kind of place that didn't ask questions. In the dim room, Lucas collapsed onto the bed, his face buried in his hands. "I'm so sorry," he said. "I never wanted this for you." I sat beside him, my hand on his back. "We're here now," I said. "Together." He looked up, his eyes red but fierce. "I meant what I said. I love you, Ethan, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep you safe." I kissed him, slow and sure, pouring everything into it, fear, hope, love. "We'll figure out," I said. "But we need a plan." Over the next few days, we pieced together a way out. Lucas had overheard enough to know the operation was bigger than Tom, tied to a network that stretched across the state. We couldn't go to the cops. Not yet, not without proof. But we could disappear, start over somewhere new. We pooled our savings, enough for bus tickets to California, a place where we could be us, no hiding, no fear. The night before we left, Lucas called his mom, who'd left Tom years ago. She cried when he told her the truth about us, about his dad. "Come to me," she said. "I'll help you." The bus ride was long, the seats cramped, but Lucas's hand in mine made it bearable. We talked about the future, college, maybe, or a little apartment by the ocean. For the first time, I let myself believe in it. When we arrived at his mom's house in San Diego, she pulled us both into a hug, her eyes warm with acceptance. "You're safe now," she said, and I believed her. Tom never came for us. Maybe Scarface had been bluffing, or maybe Tom was too deep in his own mess to care. We heard later he'd been arrested, caught in a sting operation that unraveled the whole network. Lucas grieved, not for the man Tom had become, but for the dad he'd once been. Years later, Lucas and I stood on a beach at sunset, the waves crashing around us. He slipped a ring onto my finger, his smile brighter than the California sun. "We made it," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "We did," I said, kissing him as the tide rolled in. The garage, the crates, the fear, it was all behind us. What remained was us, two kids who'd found love in the chaos and built a life worth fighting for. The world wasn't perfect. There were still whispers, judgments, people who didn't understand. But every time Lucas took my hand, I knew we'd face it together. And that was enough.